All right. Welcome back, everybody. We have a very special guest joining us today. As you know, I'm Max, and this is Damon, and this is Coach Jensen, the legendary Coach Jensen, as I should say, from Iowa women's basketball. And first things first, Coach, congratulations are in order. Your Iowa Hawkeyes won their second straight Big Ten championship.
I got my shirt on too, guys, right there, baby.
Look at that. She's got the merch.
You can never wear it enough that first week. You can't.
Oh my gosh.
Wear the heck out of it.
I would never take it off.
I would never take it off. Never. So, building off of a championship, you've done it before, and you'll do it again this year. How do you take that momentum into the big tourney, using that success moving forward?
Right. I think that's always anybody who wins the championship. You really don't want that week and a half, that 2 weeks, because then you can go cut both ways, right? You can rest up and you can put in a couple new sets or whatever. But I think if you asked anybody, you just like to keep going. And so what we do, we try to give them a couple days off, and now we'll practice for 3. We'll take a couple off before the selection show. And then when that selection show happens, it's like that game face comes back on, because now you know the opponent again, instead of, we're just like you guys. We have people in our office, Bailey Turner, our SID, he's looking at the projections, and we're trying to figure out who could be the opponent. And so that's the fun, especially fun when you win. Because this week, when you win, there's nothing like this week, because you have that high, got your shirts, right? You got your hats, and you can just be euphoric this week. And you're looking at all the projections. If you lose and you have a good season, you're kind of bummed, but then you're getting your spirits up because you got that next shot at the NCAA tournament. But when you win this week, there's nothing like winning your conference tournament and having this week off. And any coach will tell you. So we're really we're enjoying it right now. And last year we unfortunately had a early exit in that tournament. A lot of just weird things. That's what's great about March. Unless you're the underdog, it's painful as heck. But most everybody in March Madness is always cheering for the underdog, unless your team's playing, right? So there's a quote that says, what's delayed shall not be denied. And that's why I think we've kind of really used that as like, that was such a gut wrencher. But if you get into coaching thinking that every day is going to be a good day, very few people are the New York Yankees, right? Even the Yankees right now, they're not quite, where they're not in the World Series, but it's going to happen to you. I've been coaching 30 years, and we've had a lot of championship moments, and we've had a few of those gut wrenching ones that you think you just can't get off the tarp, right? And be like, oh, and I don't care if it's the, NBA male best teams ever, or junior high team. If you coach long enough, it'll all happen to you. So that was a tough defeat last year in the NCAA tournament. So we didn't dwell on it. We used it as motivation. And I think our team did a really good job this season. And now as we start the NCAA excitement, it will continue to use that as motivation.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And you guys are one of the hottest teams in the country.
It's fun. I like being that. We're coming together all at the right time.
Yeah, it's big. Before we move on, I think there's some more congratulations in order.
Absolutely.
You're a Hall of Famer now?
Yes, I am. That just shows my age, right? You don't get a visa unless you're old enough to be considered for that. But yeah, it's really nice. I don't know if it's not that major of a deal, but it's certainly nice recognition. And I think the best part of those things is, the texts flying in from former players, or from your good friends, or, fans. So that's been the best part. But I tell you what, there's a lot of great assistants out there, but I am taking this for our whole staff, and especially Jenny Fitzgerald. She's another longtime assistant. She's been working with Lisa Bluter and myself at the same time. She stepped away from coaching, the recruiting side of it, and the typical hours of coaching as far as recruiting and flying around. She took a role called the special assistant to the head coach on the staff. She said that title. She stated it. All she wanted to do was do the strategies, and she's fantastic at it. And she just didn't want to do the recruiting. So her and I are going to share this award. That's for sure.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Speaking of your recruiting, so you've been in Iowa your whole life, and a legendary coach, legendary player. We'll get to that.
Not really. That's a loose term, fellas. Legendary, very loose term. But I'll run with it.
I think definitely appropriate. Do you think that your ties to Iowa help with your recruiting status?
Yeah,
there?
I do. I think the Midwest, we try to recruit that pretty hard. We'll go, I'm not going to go to Massachusetts area unless I got a pretty good connection, because who I want is probably who, well, UMass would want, but Connecticut wants, right? Because they're so close, right? So I've learned over the years, kind of stay where you got a legitimate shot, or you have to have a legitimate connection. I would love to reach someday the status of a Connecticut where they can go all over the country, and they're recruiting the top tier. But anybody who is in the Midwest and has been a long timer like I have been, you need to really shore up the Midwest states. You need to know your connections, the high school coaches, the AAU clubs. And I think we've been able to do that over the long haul. And then we've been fortunate over the last 6-7 years. We've happened to have, a couple of goats in my mind. We had a great center, Megan Gustafson. She was from Wisconsin. I don't know if you were following at that time, but there's 7 National Player of the Year awards. She won 6 out of the 7. And the only one she didn't win, she came out with Sabrina Ionescu, who's a pretty good player. So for her, our center to dominate the national awards was really fantastic. She's now a role player in the WNBA, but just doing a fantastic job in Phoenix. Plays overseas as well. And then, of course, Caitlin Clark. Caitlin was from Iowa, but she was a national recruit. So we were, that recruiting process went all over the board before it landed here. And so we were very fortunate that she's here, obviously. So anybody, any coach anywhere will tell you, you have to shore up your tri-state, quad-state region. Because with women, girls, they usually, unless you're the top tier, you're going to stay within a 4 or 5 hour radius. In my unscientific study, they start out wanting the world, but pretty soon, if they're looking at UCLA, they don't end up there. They end up in the Midwest, and they end up, from a Midwest kid, and it's snowy sometimes and stormy. The UCLA seems sexy. I'm going to go there. I don't want, at the end of the day, boy, they usually don't go there, usually. Yeah. So
once you get away from
that's kind of what our ticket has been is, if we're going to recruit the coast, we have to have a pretty good connection. And, I'll try, but I got to see sincerity. If I see, you're ranked high right now, but they don't give me a lot of love, I'm going to move on because I'm not going to get them. You got to have kind of a little bit of love at first sight when they're sophomores, especially. And then it takes 2 or 3 years to cultivate that.
Yeah, absolutely. I don't doubt that your program is moving into a national presence because of the dominance that you've had and your path as a recruiter.
Yeah, it's it has changed. We have some really great kids. In fact, we got I can't talk about it, but we got a great commitment from a young post player from Oregon. So those are things like we get those type of kids. We got a great guard from Cali interested. Got some kids from the East Coast. We've got a long way to go to get them, but the fact that they're showing interest, visiting, that kind of thing. So now we have to change, right? We got to, make sure that we're not just, leaning on what we've done before is, broadening our approach and our reach as well. And we got to keep winning. You only get attention if you're winning, right? People aren't going to fly all that way to play unless you're winning. So winning helps.
Right, absolutely. And you're sitting, I meant, you're a national recruiting power in waiting, but you are sitting on a lot of great talent in the Midwest and specifically in Iowa. Like you mentioned Caitlin Clark. I mean, she's my favorite player. Yeah. I think there are a lot of people whose favorite player is Caitlin Clark. Like, what is it about her game that sets her apart and makes her, just deliver when it matters?
Well, I think that, Caitlin is just that rare person that has all the moxie we all want to have all the time. Like Caitlin is just amazing when it comes to her skill set, right? Because her range is crazy. Her vision is crazy, and she just has a uncanny knack for the game of basketball. And so you put the skill set with the mindset. And I think that's why she's so many people's favorite player, because she does a lot of things you just don't think she's capable of doing. And sometimes she does things when you don't think she should do them, like pull the logo, right? But that makes it fun because you're like, oh my gosh. And then it goes in sometimes. It's this unbelievable time. And I think a player like that even has us as coaches kind of on the edge of your seat. Like even yesterday at practice, she came down and jacked and pulled one. And she looked over at our staff and said, sorry, but she, the sorry is, part of, she has to pull it in practice to kind of have the practice or the experience of being able to nail it in a game. So I think that's what we're seeing. And we're seeing someone in the women's game that, we've not seen. And she has a lot of critics. She has a lot of people that admire her. She has a lot of people wondering because she doesn't fit the typical female stereotype. Humble, plays hard, works hard, maybe every now and then gets competitive, but, always gracious. She's not that. She's going to kick your ass, right? And she's going to be the Jordan Shrug. She's going to be, look at me. She doesn't like a call. She's going to act like a guy in the NBA. And a lot of times it rubs them wrong, but her competitive nature has her so wired for that. And she's an entertainer. She's kind of like, she gets it's not solving cancer. She wants to win and she wants to hoist the national trophy. But I'm going to tell you about her. She won the MVP of the Big Ten tournament. And as soon as she got it, she just kind of set it on the stage. And then she went back, goofiness. She forgot it on the bus. It's like she wants that and she wants the triple doubles. But at the end of the day, she just wants to have fun and win. And I think if you're a true basketball fan or fan of any sport, you appreciate how she's playing. You appreciate the wonder. You appreciate the kind of a little cocky smile, and you appreciate the skill set. And I just think she's really good for the game. And if you really know her, and I've been recruiting her since she was 7th, 8th grade. She is an awesome kid, awesome human being, and in her very worst moments, when people want to critique her, when she's and she does make mistakes. She's too sassy with the refs sometimes, and we're working on it. She blows it sometimes, but all the conversation that I had with her in recruiting, I knew what her heart was like. So, she had some moments, a lot more moments in high school than what you might see now. And so she's refined and, all getting that. But she's just a golden kid, and she gets it on levels that I don't think a lot of people do. It's entertainment. She's having a blast. And, she's going to compete until the final buzzer. And she's going to do it with a very, very high passion.
It comes across, for sure. Yeah. Watching it at home, we definitely
fun to watch. And we could talk about Caitlin all day, but do you ever got to tell her you were a bucket?
What? Oh, yeah. Because
she gets 27, but you got 30.
Yeah, that's what whenever she gets kind of cocky, and I'll be like, well, you have not yet averaged 29.6 points per game. So you sit on back, girl. You sit on back until you beat that.
Let her know, Coach.
Let her know.
Coach could have taken her to school in her prime. 29.6 a game is crazy.
Well, and we all had our roles, boys. I never met a shot I didn't like. So that was my role. So I had to jack it up.
You, in a way, were like Caitlin Clark before Caitlin Clark.
Maybe without the moxie or the range. But when I talk to her, I act like I was her before her. So.
Right. Well, you're an Iowa legend, and you were very humble. But I want to know, genuinely, where do you think you rank on the all-time list of people from Iowa?
Well, let's see.
I don't know a whole ton of people from Iowa, but
since you don't know it, I'm number one on your list right now. So I'm going to run with that. I'm going to run with that.
I think You are absolutely on my Mount Rushmore of people from Iowa. Your face.
We're one of the least populated states. So really to make Mount Rushmore in the state of Iowa wouldn't take a lot. But
percentage-wise,
but I
right?
can shoot for that. I can start to shoot for that. This is a very great question, a flattering question. I think on the state of Iowa has had tremendous high school girls basketball. Little known fact, I don't know if you know this about me, but my grandmother was in the Hall of Fame, and she was the state champion in 1920. So she's
Wow,
passed away, but they've had basketball in the state for that long. And kind of a cool thing. My mother passed away about 6 years ago, and the things that'll happen in, I don't know your life stories, but typical life stories. When people pass away, you go home, you don't have time, you just get boxes of memories because you take them and you're kind of maybe emotionally don't want to go through it, or you don't have time, you'll get to it someday. Well, check out this story. When COVID happened, everything was shut down, and we had the NCAA tournament got canceled. So we were all at home, like, what is happening? For some reason, I went into my storeroom. I had to get a box of something, and I saw this box. And in the box of my mom's stuff was my grandmother, who passed away in 95. So you guys are not even born, right? So I opened this box, and there's these diaries. And I was like, old school diaries, like, just both from 1920, just so you know. I was reading those diaries of hers. I found them almost 100 years to the day. I was reading it March, let's say, whatever the tournament got canceled. I can't remember, but it was like March 17th. She had entered it like March 10th, 100 years prior. And I read all of her excitement about winning the state title, which I didn't even know I had, which was really cool. So when you ask me about where do I rank on that? Well, in our state, you're betting on women in a lot of pockets in rural Iowa. These small towns were treating the girls' sports just as well as the boys, and in some cases better. So there's been a lot of really terrific stories of, girls that have, I scored over 100 points one time in high school, right? Because of the game we played, it was it was called 6-on-6. It was 2 games of 3-on-3, really. So you had offense and a defense, and then after a score or a miss, then the balls advance to the other side, but you don't cross half court. Then the other team, so you have 3 shooters, which are called forwards, and you also have 3 defenders on your team called guards. You don't cross half court. So anyway, there's these stories of who scored 100 and all these things. So basketball-wise, it had a good foundation. So I think I was kind of at a pretty good time in the late 80s, early 90s, scoring a lot of points. So, points always kind of get, a little bit of glitz and glamour, right? So I think I've had a nice part to play in the history of girls in college basketball in Iowa, but not a major part. I think there's been a lot of people that have really moved the needle. I think your podcast like yours, just trying to bet on women, last year, it's a kind of a culmination when Sedona Price from Oregon started to show the difference in the Final Fours, or 2 years ago. Those are kind of things that kind of showed how the differences were. But there were a lot of great players, especially in Iowa, a lot of great coaches that were, making it special here. So I would like to be on the Mount Rushmore. I think that was one of my favorite things I saw as a kid, but I cannot confidently say I would be on that. But I love you for thinking I would be.
That's all right. You're on mine.
You're
on mine. You mentioned you played your college hoops in Iowa too, at Drake. And you not only were you the nation's leading scorer in high school, you led the nation's scoring.
That's kind of a little unique little fact. When you go to a party and they like say something unique about you. Well, it seems kind of arrogant to say, but sometimes I need to use it because that's really random. I believe it hasn't been done before. Every time I go speak, someone will bring that. Not every time, but they'll bring that up. And to my knowledge, I don't know if people have done that.
It's a really hard thing to do, and you wouldn't even have to ask me. If I'd done it, I would have just told you right when I walked in.
Just roll out of your mouth. Yeah. No, it doesn't roll out of my mouth. Only with my son. If he gets a little bit sassy sometimes when we're playing one-on-one, then I might have to remind him.
Oh, absolutely.
Dude, come on now. You know who you're messing with here.
So when you went back and played at Drake this season, I don't know, I'm sure Iowa's played at Drake at some point in your tenure, but is it cool to go back there and see your jersey in the rafter, to see the program that you kind of helped build?
You know, it is. It's a kind of probably more emotional, really, not in a way. When I was a young coach and we went back, that was kind of harder because you had all this loyalty. Now when I'm older, it's more emotional in the sense of how quickly time passes, and all of the memories I had as a player. And then Lisa Bruder and myself and Jenny Fitzgerald, who I referenced, we all coached together there for 8 years. So we had a lot of success as a player. Lisa coached me as a senior at Drake. And so now Lisa Bruder and I have worked together all these years. So when you go back, it's that passage of time. And you guys are too young right now to grasp it. I couldn't when I was your age. But once you get older, and you just, a jersey, right, that I'm so blessed to have hanging, right? I mean, I always tell people, if you write enough checks, you can get a jersey hung too. But it helped that I scored points. But, that's just such a moment in time that I just know doesn't happen to too many people. And I think what I like most about that is I think my kids are really proud of that. I know my mom and dad, my mom's passed away. My dad's struggling right now. He's in hospice care. But I know those moments for them, that was really cool. So that always makes me happy when I go back there. I think of the joy that I brought so many of my family and friends that doing something that I love. I mean, I love the game. I'm still in the game, right? So going back to Drake is always special. I kind of wish we didn't have to play them, because I like, I want to beat them and they know that, but we have a great relationship with that staff, always have. But it's different, I think. And I think any coach that coaches and goes back to their alma mater, it's just a different feel. But it's a lot more pride. It's never like, I want to get them and show them that I made the right choice to move on at all. It's just more of a pride thing.
Yeah. Well, there are no moral victories, but they gave your squad a good game this year.
I'm telling you, I don't know why, every era.
They know you're coming down.
We play them because it's a state rivalry. There's 4 really good schools in Iowa. Iowa State, Iowa are the Power Fives. Northern Iowa is in the Missouri Valley, as is Drake. So we all play each other. The men's side doesn't. And there's some controversy with that because fans are all mad that you should play them. But you guys know, studying the art of putting a schedule together with the net rankings, or used to be RPI rankings. It's a lose-lose in a way. Because if you lose it, everything's terrible losing to the men's side for sure. Women's, you're expected to win, but sometimes the RPIs can, not give you as much as you need in the long haul. So the men's have stopped playing it, but we've continued to play it. And I think the fans really, really like it. And it's hard. I mean, Northern Iowa, they're really good. Those in-state rivalries, all bets off, right? It doesn't matter because we recruit all those kids to a degree. They come to camps, and then all of a sudden it kind of shuffles out. And then with Drake and us, it's such a respect thing. But I'm telling you, I can remember 3 overtime games in the last 10 years there. It's just, you've got to hold on. It doesn't matter who you have, but they're going to give you the best shot. So we were fortunate to get that one for sure.
It just means more.
It does. It does mean more, no question.
Those ones. Mm-hmm. So obviously you guys don't know who you're playing yet in the tournament.
I tell you what, our video coordinator, his name is Ben Lober. I was talking to him last night. He is projecting kind of possibilities. So he's breaking down 30 games. So when we know, we'll have them ready, because I'm sure you guys kind of have aware, but all college coaches, you have a video department that cuts the games. So they just, every play has a number, or a unit. So when we're watching the film, like, we can be like, we tab it, and it's like they're running, power. They're running fist, they're running 2. But it takes a little coding, it takes a while. But I didn't know that he was, he's just doing about everybody in the field, just to have a couple ready so we can start. So
Wow.
He's got his projections, as does my 15-year-old son, who is just all about it too. So it'll be interesting to see who we actually end up playing. But I'm sorry I interrupted. Go ahead.
No, you're good. I was gonna ask, how do you guys stay locked in?
And that's
for
kind of,
that break?
you
There
kind
you
of
go.
use all the, the people who are the prognosticators like Charlie Cream and company. And you can get close, if let's say you're a 1 or 2 seed, and if what Ben is doing and my son, they're kind of looking at who the 1s and 2s would play and kind of who the lower seeds would be. So we'll probably that round could be pretty. They'll have some video ready for us to go, but what we're working on now in practice is kind of the areas that were our weaknesses, what we didn't maybe do as well in the Big Ten tournament, or maybe what's plagued us overall, and just trying to keep them sharp. Because like yesterday, what Coach Booter did in the huddle before we started, we always gather in a circle, and she kind of had them remember our first game in Purdue, our second game against Maryland, our third game of the confetti coming down after Ohio State. And we talked about it, for a little bit. And then she said, okay, turn the page. That was great, but now we have these sites ahead of us. So we went a little bit harder yesterday, and we'll try to get a scrimmage in today with against our male practice squad, just to kind of keep that flow going, because that's a long time with no really scrimmage and like a referee feel. So that's kind of how we'll keep balanced. But you can't really prepare for, anything. Like if you're going to play a box and money team, you don't know if you are. If you're going to play an all zone team, you don't know if you are. So it's better to work on what you perceive as your weaknesses, and then, be ready to go, and whatever type of team you're going to face, hopefully your experience, is going to pay off.
Yeah, for sure. And is there anyone that's really going hard in practice that we got to keep our eye on?
They're all, I thought yesterday's practice was really good. Lisa and I were talking about that. They had a good bounce, as they should. A lot of spirits were high. They just had a really, I think, a calm confidence. They were going hard, but not crazy hard, or we're worried. Yeah. But I thought everybody, top to bottom. I thought some of our centers that, don't get in a lot behind our great Monica Sonano, I thought they had some of their best minutes yesterday, really competing and going hard. So I just felt it was good yesterday. But we had not gathered before, because we got back really late Sunday night. There was a snowstorm in Minneapolis. We did not get home until 2 in the morning. And that game was played at 4, right? So there was no, by the time we got into our apartments, or the kids did, it was pushing 3, right? So we took Monday off, and then we just thought, let's just take that Tuesday off to let them get centered in class. So it was a good practice. And Caitlin was Caitlin. Awesome. That always is true. So
that's always going to happen. Yeah. You can always count on that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so your style of play, the style that you coach, is very fast-paced. Yep. You score a lot of points. You take a lot of shots. Mm-hmm. So how do you try to keep it kind of balanced? Because you've mentioned a few legendary post players that you've coached up. How do you kind of emphasize those post players as well as the guards who are taking all those shots?
Yeah, I think that's what Lisa and our staff, we do. Well, I really have always commended Lisa for this, because sometimes longtime head coaches, they'll get into what they do. Well, this is what we do. This is what we do. We're always going to run this offense. I'm always going to have this type of post. I'm always going to have this type of, off guard. And Lisa is always open to change. She's always open to, looking at what are our strengths on this team? What are our weaknesses? And she's really good at highlighting the strengths and kind of minimizing the weaknesses during the season. And then in the off season, trying to make those weaknesses, into strengths. So we have, over the years, we've run motion, we've run triangle, we've run a read and react offense. We've had a lot of sets. We've had mostly fast break. And I think we really look at, who we target for recruiting, and then we get them. And then sometimes kids are better or not as good in recruiting, and then all of a sudden maybe it's a role player that comes out of nowhere, and they're like, oh my gosh, we gotta really highlight this kid. So I think that's where I really appreciate that we've been able to morph and change. But one thing that stays constant is we love points. We like to go. We like to push. I know, like those defensive battles, we're not like our defense needs to improve, and it has slightly this year. That's sometimes always the knock on us. We don't play great defense, but we're not going to have really low defensive numbers because we score a lot, right? So if we want to score 80 or 90, chances are they're going to be up in the 70s, right, too, because they're going to have a lot of shots, and we're running back and forth. So that's what we love to do, and we're when we have really pretty good teams, we're always in the top 1, 2, 3 of points per game.
Yeah.
So when we have the post players, we're going to throw the ball into them, the great post players. And that's been our system, was a 4-out, 1-in. Well, then we had that great Megan Gustafson about 4 years ago. And then her junior year, it became evident that our most efficient players were the 4 and the 5. So then we met and we said, you know what? We've got to go away from the motion. Let's go to the triangle, which is more of a post-oriented, and that really helped us. We went to an Elite 8 with that group. So then we graduated the great Megan Gustafson, and then everybody thought, oh, man, they're going to be a little down because everything went through Megan. I mean, she was a major double-double, averaging mid-20s. Well, then we had a great guard who was on that Elite 8 team. Well, then she became the player of the Big Ten because then we went back to a 4-out, 1-in, and then we went to her strengths. And we let her penetrate, and we kick it. And then our post player was good, very good, but she was, averaging in the mid-teens, right? So then it kind of shakes out on, who's going to be your go-to and who you're going to highlight. So now, when you're long tenured staff, the big thing to be successful is team chemistry and culture, because you've got to have that, to make it enjoyable. But to sustain long-time success, everybody's got to feel like they matter in their belt. And so when you have teams that, have your stars, which you always will, that's always a concern, right? Because, some kids aren't going to get in. Well, what's unique about Caitlin Clark is she is like a star on steroids, right? I mean, she's like a rock star status, where you go places, but she scores a lot of points. And she's going to pull it from the logo. And if you're a player running back and forth, you're running back and forth and you're not going to get a shot. It's like that takes a while to settle, because that's the hardest thing. And I think sometimes Lisa gets overlooked sometimes for a lot of coaching of the year awards. Sometimes, unless you coach, it's hard to coach a star like that, because how much do you let them go? And how much do you build up the other guys? How do you fit it all together? And there's really, there needs to be a lot of attention to that, a lot of detail to that, and a lot of credit to your team, because the team had to accept Caitlin. And we had to work on that to get the team accepting Caitlin, and Caitlin to kind of all really pull back a bit. Because Caitlin could shoot it every time down the floor. She could pass a wizard-like pass every time down the floor. I mean, she could penetrate almost every time down the floor. It's like, listen, you're really good, but these guys are really good too. So for us to get really where we want to go, we have to give and take. And so that's why I think, it takes each year is a different race. For freshman year, we were all figuring out a lot of things. Sophomore year, figuring out. This year, same. But when you get to this part, what you're seeing, Caitlin really shining, but we won the tournament because of Gabby Marshall. Gabby Marshall had, she doesn't get as many shots. She got a little bit more in the tournament because people are, focusing on Caitlin. Caitlin, we're finding her better now. And the role players, if you will, are stepping up. So it's a constant work in progress. And that's the trick, is letting Caitlin shine, but bringing everybody along. So we have Monica Sonano, our center, Caitlin. They're the two bigs, right? They're the biggies. Everybody knows, and everybody's tried to shut down them. Usually, when we've lost, they haven't gotten a lot of shots, or Caitlin's gotten tough looks, but we haven't found our other kids. And I think what we're seeing the last part of the season, I hope, is the other kids, we kind of hit that balance where McKenna Warnock's stepping up. Kate Martin is just our captain and blue. So that's how I think we've been successful, but it's tough to do because it's there's a lot of strengths that we have, and knowing which strengths to go with when.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So, Coach, this has been fantastic. We want to thank you.
Thank you.
You've given so much of your time. I have one last question for you. So, tournament's coming up. We mentioned we don't even know what seed you are. We don't know who you're playing yet. We don't want to get ahead of ourselves.
Good feeling about the seed, though.
I feel
good about these kind of things. There are a lot of good teams in this tournament. I'm going to be rolling with the Hawkeyes. You guys are my favorite team.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
My question for you, we're not getting ahead of ourselves here. Is Iowa City a good place for a parade?
I love your thinking. Beautiful place for a parade. It is amazing.
There we go.
And I hope we have one in the spring. Amen to that.
We might have to catch a flight out to Iowa if there's a parade.
You catch a flight out, and I'm gonna buy. If that happens, I'm gonna buy you dinner, lunch, whatever you want. We'll celebrate something.
Yeah. We'll do another.
If that happens.
We'll do an in-person dinner.
I'll get you gear.
Yeah.
I'll hook you up.
Okay.
We're honorary Hawkeyes for life. That's what we love to hear.
All right, guys. Thanks for having me, and thanks for supporting women. I think you guys, that mindset, you can help move the needle, and we can. The thing I always get frustrated with is we can support the men's game and men's sports and women's sports. We don't have to make those old tiring get back in the kitchen mentality of so many men with the women's sport. And I've always said it's your generation that can respect women and can confidently support women. And it will never take anything away from the men's side, who we love. I mean, I love watching men's side of the game too, but I think you guys doing this is a tremendous example for my son, which I know he will turn in to watch it, and just for your peers. And it's really good for our game. And I wish you guys all the best in life. You seem like great young men that are going to do really, really great things. So don't forget me when I'm old in my rocker. You come find me somewhere in Iowa. I might have a place in, maybe I'll have a place in Florida or Italy or something. I'll drop you my line.
Yeah, get somewhere warm.
I'm going to go warm for sure. But I'll always have a house here, though. I love it. Iowa City and Iowa's beautiful. Gets a little bit of a bad rap sometimes, but once you come to visit the state, the flyover state, great people, tremendous kindness here, and they really are in the know. But that's how life is. People like to have sometimes stereotypes. But you come and visit me, whether I'm here or in some beach town somewhere. When you're rich and famous, you're on your way.
Thank you so
Coach.
much.
Coach, Hall of Famer, legendary Iowan. Thank you so much.
All right.
Good luck in
Thanks
the
so
journey.
much. We'll see you guys. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.